So I'm going to try and be brief, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I really appreciate the partnership with One Montgomery Green to keep this dialogue going. I know I've gotten a lot out of it, my staff have, and we're really eager to work with you into this brave new world that we all have to, it's filled with environmental challenges that we have to meet. And I think we're gonna be better at doing it together and learning all the steps that we have to take together and building public support for it. So let me just say a couple words. First of all, happy Earth Month to everybody. We're here at appropriate time. You all know, I don't have to tell you, you're experts in what's happening federally. The White House is a disaster. Congress is a disaster. We have Scott Pruitt running the EPA. It's incredible how boldly, aggressively, mindlessly they are attacking, not just our planet, all the environmental protections, one after another, that we've put in place for years. Hopefully we won't have Scott Pruitt around for too long, depending on his next scandal, but whoever comes after him, like the Chemistry Council Nancy Beck, Chemistry Council executive he put in place as deputy administrator, or others, there's a whole cast of characters there that we certainly don't. We need a completely whole, new direction at the White House and Congress, and that's. We can talk about that all night, but it just shows more important than ever that we lead the way at the local level. The local level is where you can make progress. The local level is where you can get things done, and where in places like Montgomery County, we have to set the example for other jurisdictions in this region and all over the state of Maryland. The state of Maryland rarely leads on anything ahead of Montgomery County. On issue after issue, Montgomery County sets the standard, and as somebody who served in Annapolis for 8 years, I can tell you, it's difficult to pass legislation in Annapolis. It's a lot easier if you can pass it in Montgomery first. So everything you're doing tonight and at your workplaces and your conversations with your members and your leaders makes a huge difference. And we're lucky, I think, to be in a place where we can create so much change and leverage it because of the community that we're in. Let me say, as Wendy mentioned, I serve both on the Transportation, Infrastructure, Energy, and Environment Committee. So we deal with transportation issues, which are huge when you're talking about climate and other environmental issues, and we deal with all the energy and environment issues as well. And there's only 3 of us. So I'm used to be in Annapolis. I was on committees of 23 for a long time. 1/3 of them Republican, 1/3 conservative Democrats. It's very different being in Montgomery County on a committee of 3. It's a lot easier to get your way and to drive good policy, which is a way of saying, please bring us your policy ideas, because Montgomery County Council is a place where we can get things done. Let me give you 2 examples of things that are in front of us right now. One is I am sponsoring with George Leventhal a solar ZTA, zoning text amendment. When I was in Annapolis, it took 5 years to pass bills, legislation allowing community solar, right? Does everybody know what community solar is? Many of us are lucky enough, as I am, to have solar panels on our roof, and that's great. I'm happy about that. But a lot of people live in an apartment building, and they don't control the roof, right? A lot of people live in a house that has tree cover and isn't really appropriate for solar panels. And a lot of people, they live in rental housing, and there's a lot of businesses that have roofs and want to be able to sell shares in a larger array or in their backyard. There's a lot of churches and other houses of worship with a large property and too big of a power bill they would like to reduce, and they'd like to also be part of the green economy and reduce their own carbon footprint. So community solar allows them to have a larger array and sell shares of it to their members, to tenants in their apartment, to members of their community association or their nonprofit. There's all kinds of ways to do community solar. It is legalized by legislation that passed through the Maryland General Assembly just 2 years ago, and as a pilot program. Other counties have moved forward and are putting together large solar arrays under community solar, but Montgomery County has not. Why? Because we have some zoning laws, outdated zoning laws in the way. So what my bill does is allows larger larger solar arrays to be on somebody's property and to be sold as shares in the community solar arrangement. It also removes a barrier it was in state law that you cannot generate any more than in county law, that you can't generate any more than 125% of the energy that you use. There's not much point in having a larger array on your property if you have to use up all the energy that you're creating, right? You want to be able to sell shares of that out to your members or your neighbors, and that's what community solar allows, but only if we pass the CTA. So the ZTA removes that limit and allows 2 megawatt projects, which are the largest allowed under state law currently, which are enough to power 200 homes. Typically, that's about a 10-acre project. It was a community church on the east side of the county that approached us and said, we'd like to have community solar in place. We'd like to generate some income and sell some shares to our worshipers, but we can't because of county zoning laws. So Anne Arundel County, Prince George's County, Baltimore City, Baltimore County have moved ahead and they have larger arrays. Montgomery County strangely doesn't because of our outdated zoning laws that would be updated by this zoning text amendment. So if you care about this, I hope you'll weigh in with the council and urge them to pass the ZTA. We're going to have a work session on it next Monday. We already had a press conference, heard from the Sierra Club, heard from a number of solar companies and other providers that are in favor of the bill. What else did I want to tell you about that? Every new array that is about 2 megawatts would create 75 to 100 temporary and permanent jobs, and each would generate about $300,000 in personal property taxes and $4 million in private investment for Montgomery County. So that's good for the economy, it's good for the environment, it's win-win, it's exactly what I think we ought to be doing more of. I also, in that spirit of having blue-green alliances, doing something that's good for our workforce and something that's good for the planet, I've introduced a bill to create a clean energy apprenticeship program. And this is something that was brought to me as an idea of WorkSource Montgomery, which is our official workforce development agency, and the Washington, D.C. building trades. So they know that there are too many of our county residents who are underemployed or unemployed, right? And there's many people that didn't go to college, didn't have the opportunity to go to college. Many of our students coming out of our high schools aren't going to go to college. And there's many workers out in the world that need certification to change careers to get into the jobs of the future, which are often in the space that we're all interested in. This is assembling solar arrays, installing solar panels. This is stormwater projects that you've probably heard a lot about. This is what else? There's a third major area. But anyway, there's a lot of growth areas, but we have to retrain our workers and create training pathways for our students coming out of high school. And that's exactly what this bill does. It creates a clean energy apprenticeship program in WorkSource Montgomery that we believe is going to allow them to be better positioned to access state funding under the EARN program and federal funding as well. So we've introduced that bill. We're going to have a hearing on that very soon. I hope you can support that as well. In a report in the Green Jobs magazine, Kelly Services says Maryland is above the 5 hottest states for green jobs. And there's lots of new development coming, my district in particular, in Silver Spring, but also in Wheaton and in White Oak, and we need lots of people to retrofit our facilities to install rain gardens, to install stormwater projects, to install solar panels, and that's what this is going to train people exactly what people will be trained to do under this. What else did I want to tell you? Oh, pervious pavement, thermal walls, wind, natural gas, sewer treatment, other environmental technologies as well. There's also a third bill I want to tell you about is a solar roof bill. I'm co-sponsoring that with Mark Elrich, and it requires the seller of a new single-family home to give the buyer an option to install solar panels when they buy their home. And it's a lot easier, as you can imagine, to finance it on the front end as part of your mortgage than it is if you have to do all the financing once you've already signed all your mortgage documents. People are much more likely to make changes to their home on the front end when they're getting all those documents and reading them, hopefully, and meeting with their realtor. So those are the 3 bills I wanted to tell you about.